You're watching Taste of Victory.
Hey guys, today we got MirageGaogamon from set 11. He comes from the anime season 5 of Digimon Data Squad or Digimon Savers. The strategy focuses on punishing your opponent for adding stuff to their hand through their effects and getting your own effects off of that, such as unsuspending and gaining memory, or bouncing your opponent's stuff to hand, which will also trigger your effects. MirageGaogamon is the star of the show here, who almost acts like a floodgate even with his all turns effect. Being all turns, it punishes your opponent for activating effects that add stuff to their hand, and with how big hands can get in an X antibody deck dominated format, this could be a huge punishment if they use Cool Boy or something like that, making it possible to pass back to your turn. So MirageGaogamon's a really cool, interesting floodgate to sit on, and hopefully we can make it work with the bottom end. This is definitely more of a casual for fun at locals level deck, but let's see how we're going to support it with our bottom end. Starting at our eggs, we have the new best egg in blue, Wanyamon. This is replacing Upamon in any deck where you would have ran it previously, because this guy, when attacking once per turn, if you have a blue Tamer in play, draw 1. It's just so generically good, and now you don't have to worry about your opponent having something out on the field to get it live like Upamon. It all depends on your field. After that, we move on to our 12 rookies. First up, the core rookie is Gaomon. 3 memory to Heart Slam, only 1000 DP on play. He's a searcher that reveals the top 3 cards of your deck, and it's a pretty generous search that lets you add 1 Digimon with Gaogamon in its name and 1 blue Tamer card among them to your hand. So the generic blue Tamer search is very much appreciated in addition to searching the rest of the line. And then when attacking once per turn, if you have a Tamer in play, return one of your opponent's level 3 Digimon to its owner's hand. Pretty good removal there in a pinch if they try to block your memory game with Gaomon or something like that. After that, we got Jellymon, which is one of the spicy copes that we are putting into the deck to try and make this work. It is 3 memory to Heart Slam, 2000 DP, and it has your turn once per turn. When you have a blue Tamer in play, draw 1. Some of the Tamers in this deck that they printed for it are unfortunately kind of weak, like the in-archetype ones. So, with the idea behind Jellymon is that you get to play Thomas, for example, which draws 1 when you play it, and then with this one on the field, you get to essentially draw 2, plussing off of playing that Tamer. So that's the idea behind that. And then you also have the Inheritable, which is basically the same thing almost as the Gaomon to bounce level 3 or lower. So again, more hate if we need to get rid of any memory blockers like those pesky rookies. After that, we got Veemon. We are running this at 4. He has your turn once per turn. When his Digimon becomes unsuspended during your main phase, gain 1 memory. We have a couple of ways to unsuspend in this deck, so the memory gain is pretty useful and impactful to be able to break memory thresholds to make sure we don't pass turn on stuff. So I do like that Veemon there as a tech. However, if you need to start cutting down for tech options, like if you want to run a Modoki Betamon or something like that to block other people's memory gain, you could definitely cut down like one of each of these two of Jellymon or Veemon and put in your tech of choice. That is going to cover our rookies. Let's move on to the level 4 champions. First up, the core to the strategy champion is going to be the Gaomon. This one is 5 memory, 5000 DP, 2 to Digivolve from a blue level 3. When attacking once per turn, if your opponent has 8 or more cards in their hand, gain 1 memory. When attacking Inheritable, once per turn, if you have a Tamer in play, return one of your opponent's level 3 Digimon to its owner's hand. So this deck has a lot of hate towards the level 3s specifically. I'm guessing they didn't want you to be able to be memory blocked that easily. But none of those effects scale, unfortunately, like some other decks, like how All Force effect scales. So, I mean, that would be kind of crazy to put something like that on a level 4, but you could at least cap it at a lower level or something maybe, because otherwise you just have a bunch of rookie removal. It doesn't really do too much for you. The when attacking is truthfully not going to come up that much, because you have to have the guy that gives jamming out anyways to be able to swing this guy and get the memory without hoping it dies in security, unless you're going to swing over someone's Digimon, which most people in this format aren't going to be leaving something that's 5,000 or less for you to swing over anyways. So this guy's kind of just here for the name and for the rare instance where these effects come up. Then we got Kumamon, who is just simply a hybrid for game. After that, we have Coredramon. So consistency is something we need to provide for this deck. We don't have too much like speed in this deck. We need to be able to draw quickly. If we are bricking, it is Doomsday. We need to be able to draw quick. So we have Coredramon, which is 6 memory to play, 2 memory to Digivolve from a blue level 3, 5000 DP, security, it plays itself after the battle for free, and then on play, trigger, draw 2. So if this comes out of security, this really does help your momentum by potentially unbricking you with some extra draws, and if not, it lets you see pieces that you were looking for anyways. 6 Heart Slam is definitely bad, but like if you have a good memory threshold and not much of another play, like this could potentially unbrick you. So Coredramon's cool to be able to potentially get some more draws. That covers the champions. Let's move on to the level 5 ultimates. These are all going to be, well, mostly Gaogamon lineup. Let's start with the new MachGaogamon, one of the core pieces of the deck in terms of level 5s. 7 memory to Heart Slam, 3 memory from a level 4, 7000 DP. When Digivolving, this Digimon gains blocker and gets plus 2000 DP for every 4 cards in your opponent's hand until the end of your opponent's turn. Typically, blocker is not too much of an impactful skill because it'll just get blown up somehow, but on a level 5 and up, since it carries over for the turn, if you get blocker on MirageGaogamon with the DP boosting, that's pretty impactful. It could potentially get you away from lethal for a turn. So I do like that there. Its Inheritable is what we really want it for though. All turns, once per turn, when an effect adds a card to your opponent's hand, unsuspend this Digimon. Really fantastic because it synergizes with that Veemon we saw earlier, and it potentially helps you attack your opponent for game with the unsuspending of your MirageGaogamon. After that, we are going to move on to our ultimates. From here, we are only running 8, so the next 4 are split up between another MachGaogamon and AeroVeedramon. The MachGaogamon is the old one from all the way back at booster set 4. It is 8 memory to Heart Slam, 7000 DP, 3 from a level 4, and then main Digiburst 2, and return one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon to its owner's hand, trash the sources. Inheritable is actually pretty nice. While you have a Tamer in play, this Digimon gets plus 2000 DP. So that's cool to make your swings with MirageGaogamon more safe, because you really don't want to lose it once it comes out. On one hand, because of the speed of this deck, but also because it's a really great floodgate, and if you're able to pressure while keeping that thing on the field, it becomes very annoying for certain decks. It's basically your win con that you have to sit on. So we want to make sure it lives. And blue does not have too much generic DP boosting. So this is one of the best ones we could get for this deck, because at least this one's in archetype as well. And the Digiburst is nice to be able to bounce stuff if in the early level, like maybe a blocker or something that's sitting around, a memory blocking rookie even. And if nothing else, the bounce the hand is another trigger for your effects that trigger off of your opponent getting something added to their hand. After that, we go to AeroVeedramon. This card is really great for pressure because it has jamming, so it lets you attack right away with your stack, so you're not as worried about it dying because of jamming. And then you have the Inheritable. Your turn, while you have 8 or more cards in your hand, this Digimon gains security attack +1, which is really useful to be able to let us pressure with our MachGaogamon. And since we have ways to unsuspend it, pairing that with a security attack +1 is so valuable. Like, you could probably even argue like going up higher on this thing, or cut the old Gaoga entirely if you really want to be able to max out on this, because I think that pressure it offers is really valuable, considering this deck has multiple ways to unsuspend. But that's your preference. I like to have the other MachGaogamon just to have another way to trigger the bounce effects and to get that DP boosting. And then we have MirageGaogamon, which we've been talking about a lot in this video. He has 4 memory to Digivolve from a level 5 that is blue, 12,000 DP. When Digivolving, return one of your opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon to its owner's hand. If no Digimon is returned by this effect, your opponent adds the top card of their security to their hand. So either way, if this effect fails or not, you are going to add something to your opponent's hand, and lowering their security is a nice consolation prize at the very least. All turns, once per turn, when an effect adds a card to your opponent's hand, gain 1 memory for every 4 cards in your opponent's hand. That is the kicker here that makes this card really great. We have very big hand sizes in Digimon, and the X-Antibody decks, which are going to be popular in Booster Set 11, like MetaGarurumon and Blackwork X, are going to have gigantic hands. When I practiced and entered tournaments with MetaGarurumon X, I commonly have 12 cards in hand, like all the time. So like that's 3 memory right there if they try to Cool Boy or something like that. So there goes their profit off of Cool Boy. If they're at the wrong memory threshold, you know, there goes like their turn even sometimes. So MirageGaogamon is a very interesting floodgate, and I am very curious about like the support it could potentially get in the future if it ever becomes like super good. There is more support coming for this in X4, so if you're interested in the deck, I would recommend picking it up now. But because like who knows, it'll go up, but at least for now, it's a very interesting mega with potential implications in the future. So it's cool to sit on, but also we have ways to make it aggressive. Then we'll move on to our options. We have quite a few here compared to the previous deck profile. So we are tossing this in here just because we have the Jellymon. It's 4 memory and it lets you return one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon to their hand. And if you have a Digimon with Jellymon in its name or a Digimon with Jellymon in its sources, return one of your opponent's Tamers to its owner's hand. So again, this is another thing that lets us bounce. If we trigger the memory gain effect, this becomes pretty cheap or even sometimes free. So it's pretty nice there. We do see the other options here are Blue Memory Boost and Cocytus though. So we could potentially consider cutting this down to up each of those 1 in my honest opinion to be able to get more consistency. However, you know, 4 Cocytus is a lot. At that point, you're kind of just hoping it's in security instead of your hand. So I think this ratio is fine. Then we have Blue Memory Boost. This one is 3 to play. It searches your top 4 to add 1 blue Digimon card. You can delay it later to gain 2 memory. This deck needs speed. This deck needs consistency. So we're running 3 here to make sure we have flexible memory management to be able to play with and make big plays later, but also see our pieces with the search effect. After that is Cocytus Breath. It is good removal, at least as far as blue gets, and then it also bounces to opponent's hand, so it does trigger your effects that activate off of that, of them getting a card added to their hand. So you can potentially make Cocytus cheaper, like if you have MirageGaogamon out and you play this, like I think on average going to make it a 5 cost option, which is a lot more nice. So good synergy there, and something that we need in a pinch to remove a threat. After that, we move on to our Tamers. First up, introduced here in this set is Nikolai. He has 3 costs. Start of your main phase, whenever your Digimon with Gaomon or Gaogamon in their name gains jamming until the end of the turn. Your turn, when effect adds a card to your opponent's hand. By suspending this Tamer, gain 1 memory. So if we use that with something like BB Thunder or with MirageGaogamon, we're reducing the cost automatically by 1, making them a lot more cheap. And the jamming is pretty nice if we don't have AeroVeedramon to be able to swing with that Gaogamon champion that we saw earlier to gain memory off of its when attacking effect. However, I think this card is really mid as far as the Tamer goes. Like, jamming, cool, but we probably won't be swinging with our low end anyways, you know, not until we get to something with jamming or until our megas. So the only thing we want to swing with anyways would be that Gaogamon. So it's probably the only thing we would really use this on. And then the memory gain effect is nice, but I think we really would have preferred this to be a memory tamer or something like that, because like it comes up, but like the stuff that triggers that, it's already pretty expensive. So like you're never really going to be profiting off of this too much. You're just going to be like reducing costs slightly, which is a pretty big deal. So I think it's probably like the most mediocre of the Tamer lineup, so we're only going to be running it at 2, but there is some synergy there to reduce stuff in the early game, like BB Thunder, like Startling Thunder, for example. I'm sorry if I've been calling this BB Thunder. That used to be the fan translated name, so I'm not too used to it if I've been saying that. And this dude is from Digimon World Redigitized. It's a great game. After that, we got Davis. He is a great searcher and a memory tamer. Fantastic, what this deck really needs, so we run 3 of it. And then we got Thomas to round up our tamer lineup. He has 3 memory, on play, trigger, draw 1. And then main, if your opponent has 8 or more cards in their hand, you may suspend this tamer to unsuspend one of your Digimon with Gaomon in its name. So with AeroVeedramon underneath the MachGaogamon, getting multiple of these guys out really adds up quick and can lead to a win that same turn if you have multiple of these guys out. Like playing this when Jellymon is out nets you a +1 off of the card advantage off of the 2 draws. But even then, if you can't do that, like it's not out specifically at the same time, draw 1 at the very least replenishes itself, because when it comes out it doesn't do too much, but at least it's replenishing itself, and the potential to be more aggressive is pretty nice. If you're in a situation where you're actually swinging with Gaomon for that memory gain too, you could unsuspend and you hit an option or something, you could unsuspend it for a little bit extra more pressure, or to safely keep digivolving up even after getting the memory. So there's some cool synergy there with the deck. But that is going to be the profile for MirageGaogamon. It's admittedly a pretty slow deck that doesn't do too much on the climb up, because like you are relying so much on your opponent's hand size and on stuff adding to your opponent's hand, which you only have so many ways to trigger. And like if we add, like there's only so much good things we can add to trigger that effect. So we really are just waiting on our opponent to do something half of the time, which is why like you want to just sit on MirageGaogamon, because it's one of the few things that like really benefits you on the altern effects side. Being pretty tamer reliant, you do have unfortunately a very bad matchup into Black War Greymon X, but that's just kind of the nature of BT11. I feel like All Force Veedramon is really fast, but I think everything like towards the bottom of tier 2 you have a pretty good matchup in if you've seen the tier list that I made earlier. But it's a really cool deck. I do like it. If you're a fan of MirageGaogamon, I think it's worth trying out. I did try to make this more Gao line focused for fans of the Digimon, but there is a Leomon package that I've seen like one top in Japan that I thought was pretty interesting. So maybe that's something we can explore later in another profile, but this one is meant to be more within archetype and try to make that work. Let me know if you guys have come up with something you enjoy more. Let me know what cards you guys are running instead, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, remember to stay hungry until you get a taste of victory.